Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. The full moon on January 13th is in the sign of Cancer, and so it is integrating whatever we have processed or directed from that new moon that occurred at the end of December last year. Now, this is particularly intense because you may recall that new moon had what I would call a higher octave of spiritual directiveness. So even though it was in the sign of Capricorn, which we often think of as being involved with the mundane world, the material, the practical, it had a flavor or influence that was very much about why we're here. So the overall theme in the past coming years has been an emphasis on purpose. And this target or this focus came out of the period where Pluto was in the sign of Capricorn since 2008. Wherever Pluto moves, it has to do with irrevocable transformation. And where we've ended up at this point in time, that Pluto is now in the sign of Aquarius, is there are people who have a very directed sense of purpose, which is totally focused on the material, profit, short-term results. And yet we have others who are thinking more in terms of how do we make this world that has changed in the actual physicality of the world, the actual reality, which some people discount, of how our Earth, planet, system, climate is shifting, changing, and looking in practical and purpose focus on how do we work with this new reality. And when I look at this full moon in the sign of Cancer, one thing it's speaking of very much is connecting with that emotional drive with spirit. What is it that motivates us, which makes us feel connected, which as though we're here to do something, not only purposeful, but with a gift aspect to it. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot, because Cancer is the sign that Mars has retrograde into, and I spoke at length about this last week, but what we're feeling is this, well, those of us who are paying attention is, and some of us it's more emphasized than others, but for many of us, we're feeling this kind of going over of whatever the historic past was, especially to do with family or place of origin, and how connected we are to that legacy, that root energy where we came from. And for some of us, it needs to be reassessed, looked at differently, so that we may, over this retrograde period of time, decide that we are free of certain things that have continually drawn us back. And when I say that, think about people who you know, perhaps yourself, people in the news, people who go over grievances, point to things in the past that they feel very influenced by, wronged by, affected by. And it's not that we can totally cleave or cut off what our historic influences have been, but in a conscious way, because what happens when Mars is retrograde is we go over, we step back. We cannot move forward without going through something that we already know. And if we go through it in the habitual way, this is how I've always related to it, this is my story, this is the way I know it, this is what's expected of me, well, then that is what your experience will be as we move forward. But for those of us who look at this, especially as we are in this full moon period where the moon is being kick-started, if you will, by that Mars in retrograde, and it's nudging us. And we may get impatient, we may get angry, we may be with someone who suddenly is very angry or experiencing crankiness or rage or a sense of feeling wronged. And this can be particularly emphasized in the evening. So my go-to on a day like today would be pace yourself, be present, pay attention to how you're feeling about something that you're called on to do or in dialogue with. And especially if you're working, talking, or being with someone who seems very disjointed or unsettled, allow the time for that person to express whatever it is that they're grappling with. Because what happens with this full moon is that moon in Cancer is being lit by the Capricorn sun. And so we have an opportunity to construct in a different way how we respond, deal with emotions, if we're thinking of it in more a purposeful and what is the foundation I really want to stand on here. Do I want to stand on the old story? And yes, there's always going to be components of that old story, but how do you take the reactive, habitual way of dealing with it and create something new with it? I mean, I personally know what I experienced over this last holiday period, which was very intense. And just to share a very quick little piece, I am older. I'm not a 30-year-old astrologer, as many of you know. And I am used to being the person who basically has all the plates in the air and orchestrates whatever needs to happen with family and hosting, etc., etc. And through a very dramatic turn of events, I have come to realize that I need to stop being that person. And if things don't pan out the way they have for a long period of time, that's okay, because I need to concentrate on how I can best use my Mars energy. And Mars is about expression of the libido, getting what we desire, um, appropriate or inappropriate expression of anger, uh, being able to move forward with what it is you want to achieve, directed goal. And so, with this Mars in Cancer period, especially at this full moon time, look at what might need to be adjusted in your life to facilitate, because Mars is going to be retrograde for a bit more time. It's not until the end of February that it goes into direct motion, and then it's still moving over that Cancer sign until it finally decides to re-enter Leo. So what we want to do is really be in touch with our feelings, the feelings of people we most care about. And yes, sometimes it's peripheral people's feelings as well, because ideally we want to operate harmoniously in the world. And the sign of Cancer is very much about family of origin, roots, where you come from, how you nurture yourself. But it also is a reminder that we all have come from the same source. We all have a connection to one another. And the important thing for a healthy world, as we move more firmly into Pluto and Aquarius, is how do we work with what may, in one perspective, be a kind of childlike reaction to what feels like injustice or the wrongs, and how do we adjust that so that we can really purposely work together on creating a more just world. So I think this is a very strong full moon, and I invite us all to think about, how do I balance what I feel with what I can actually make happen. The moon goes void, of course, at 11:46 p.m., and then it enters the sign of Leo at 4:12 a.m. on the 14th January. And once this happens, we're not in that same kind of flow energy that the full moon invited, even though, as I say, we might have had some prickly areas that day as well, because when things are emotionally intense, sometimes it's a little, it's a lot to handle, but it becomes easier to handle when we pay attention to what those emotions are. Once the moon is in the sign of Leo, so I'm looking at Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, Wednesday especially is when things really, in my mind, really hit boiling point. So here's the piece. For those of us who weren't paying attention to what was going on with that full moon on Monday, by the time we get to Tuesday, and then especially on Wednesday, there can be some real, almost, well, in some cases, aggression. Like people just angrily acting out. And So, especially if you're out in the world, pay attention to your surroundings, if you're driving, etc., etc. But it can also be with people who are in your world, who you're interfacing with, people at work, family situations, children, especially teenagers. So, depending on how mature the person is with handling emotions when they become bigger, that's going to really show what is the most incendiary at this point in time. And in actuality, I'm concerned looking at places where there have been fires, where there have been a lot of difficult things going on in the natural environment. And it's the last thing we want to do in situations that are very dramatic is throw fuel on the flame. So I'm not just talking metaphorically here. I'm talking about, as in the news, etc., with the hot spots in the world. It's so important on these, as I look towards midweek, that people are conscious of the effect of what they say. And so the more present we are on Monday, the more graceful Tuesday and Wednesday happen. Now, depending on what's going on in your life, you may be dealing with situations that are a bit fraught, that may be highly keyed up. I mean, some of us may be dealing with litigation or situations that are in a higher octave of intensity. So that's when it's so incredibly important to tone things down if possible and put it more. What I would say is, if you're looking at, think about art, think about music, think about movies, and it's very easy to punch out imagery or sound that is electric, captivating, can't take your eyes off it, whether you want to or not, over the top, big, like almost cartoonish strokes. And yet, the more effective way to use these couple of days is the subtlety of surprise. Think in how you tone it down to sort of give that unexpected response you want to tease out or look for. And it's not that we can't make things have positive outcomes on Tuesday and Wednesday. It's just, what's important is you want to be in control of the surprise, of the unexpected, of the turn of events. And so, how do you do that? Well, you do it by being in control of what's going on with you and tempering what you say, how you respond to it, and how you react to it. The moon goes void of course at 11:10 p.m. and Wednesday evening, I'm talking Wednesday evening, this is a really keyed up volatile evening. So it can be fabulous if you're doing something like experimenting in dance or working out, but I wouldn't do anything that I wasn't physically capable of doing. It's more about, really, as I said earlier, being in control of whatever the outcome may be. So I guess one way to broach this is if we think about what is a career or a situation where a person is poised or ready for whatever may come up, because what may come up is not necessarily something that's scripted. And so there's this improv element to it. And the best way to work with it is in a way that keeps the play, the grace, and the expectation for a outcome that's going to be a good one, in spite of the surprise element to it. So Thursday the 16th, the moon doesn't enter Virgo until 11:46 a.m. So if possible, it's wonderful for those of us who can to have a morning where you're just working on things already in motion. You're clearing off your desk, you're playing, you're in a creative spin, not expecting anything to come out of it, but just really enjoying the ability to be present and active. Once the moon enters Virgo, we're in a period that is very productive. Remember, we're in the waning moon cycle. So, yes, some of us may start things new, but if you're starting something new, keep in mind certainly that Mars is retrograde. So there may be delays. And with Mars retrograde, oh gosh, it depends what the launch or proposal is. In general, if you're looking for some sort of response that is quick or action oriented, it's best to wait until Mars is direct. It may be that you're going back to something that had been broached and you're re-inviting or you're checking in, and that's fine. But in general, these days are really great for working on things therapeutic, organizational, things that really require drilling down and research and looking at details. Can be fabulous for anything that's got to do with a healing process or things that have to do with craft, making something happen, how you pull together different people in whatever their great capacity is to work together in a team. These are good days to kind of be in the trenches with whatever you're hoping to make happen. One of the things that comes to mind when I'm looking at these couple of days is if you're part of a team that's organizing something that is going to be happening in the next couple of months, these are great days to be behind the scenes. It's kind of stage mom energy, the energy that's about let's look at everything that needs to be put in place so the thing really is able to move as it needs to. And it can also have a finishing up quality to it, whatever this is, because as I said, it's the waning moon cycle. So it's looking at, what do I want to adjust for when I do it next time? What maybe I can plan differently? What did I learn or what did we learn from this experience that we can see in a different light? On Friday, one of the things to note is that especially when we're in late afternoon, early evening, it can be a period where, oh, I'm just not getting the response I want. People aren't coming through. I don't have the support I need. I don't have the money I need. This is a passage. It's going to change. So, what I consider valuable when I'm looking at something like this is, okay, well, that person isn't going to work, or that situation isn't the right one. So let's look some more. And that's what I mean about this being a good period for the research, the details, the seeing who has the skills that are required. On Saturday, this is, I would say, things are coming together more. There may be some confusion or not feeling like you know quite what's going on as I look towards the late afternoon, early evening. And I would say that's just a great time to take a time out, um, just sort of slowly put things together for your evening meal. Do a relaxation, meditation, just chill a little, because that's really what energetically is desired. And then after that, we're in this really nice place of feeling like, oh, there's the support I needed. There's what I was looking for. It comes together. And so evening can be very rich for feeling as though I have what I need to make this happen. I mean, one of the images I have is, oh, I was going to make this certain dish, and I don't have, I thought it was in the cupboard, but it's not here. Someone must have eaten it or taken it. Darn it, where is it? And then boom, it's inspiration. It's, oh, I can use this instead, and it'll be even more incredible. Or someone comes home and says, hey, so and so just gave me this handful of wonderful herbs, or something like that, where things just kind of come in. And I think that's always a really good lesson or opportunity when I'm looking at transits, or for those of us who might have an aspect in our horoscope where we're always feeling like, oh, I don't have the support, I don't have the money, I don't have the team, I always have to do everything myself. I mean, if this is a if this is a tape that goes on in your head, and I certainly can appreciate that, because I heard that tape quite a bit in my younger life. But one thing that is really helpful is when that comes up, just sit with it. Say to yourself, well, okay, thank you for your opinion. It's a big world, a gigantic universe. I'm going to listen, wait, expect that something else is going to come in. And that's what can happen this evening. Something else can come in. So the moon goes void, of course, at 9:01 p.m. and then it enters Libra at 10:33 p.m., which takes us through the end of the weekend. And Libra moon in general wants to hang with people, relate, do things that are cultural, watch lovely movies, engage in dialogue that can at times be a bit, I don't know if I'd use the word antagonistic, but devil's advocate, a lot of back and forth depending on how that strikes you or hits you. And overall, I would say that this is Saturday evening and Sunday look really nice to me for just enjoying connecting with people. And that kind of devil's advocate chafing can come when I look more towards late evening on Sunday and into Monday. So enjoy the time of harmony and look for the time of harmony. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.